I think that was part of the Harris campaign's plan to bait Donald Trump, right? She deliberately, kind of led him on and gave him the bait during the immigration question, which really launched him into this tirade of, saying, these, to be very clear, these claims have been debunked. They are conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
And, Donald Trump said people are eating, or the immigrants are eating people's pets in Springfield, Ohio. And ABC was very quick to fact check.
Yeah.
Kudos to the moderators. That was one of the times they jumped in and they said, we spoke to officials in Springfield. There are no reports of that. That is false. And again, Donald Trump doubled down on these claims.
Yes.
So it's kind of a fascinating rhetoric.
About the debate, I think there was a couple of things that are really interesting. The first one is how well Kamala Harris managed to kind of invert the incumbent versus insurgent roles. It's extraordinary, really, when you think that she's been the vice president
Yes.
for 3.5 years. She literally is giving campaign rallies with the vice presidential seal on her lectern.
Yes.
And yet she felt like the incumbent, the one arguing for change. And she was painting on Donald Trump as the kind of, as the insurgent. And she was painting Donald Trump as the incumbent and sort of getting him to defend his record, which I thought was no small achievement, really.
Yeah.
And the other thing, and maybe this is something I sort of wanted to ask Caitlin, is Donald Trump still doesn't seem to have worked out how to handle the different way he's being attacked. People used to say he's dangerous, he's awful, he's racist, and for very understandable reasons. But now they're sort of taking a different tack. They're mocking him, mocking the size of his the rally, the crowds at his rallies, and saying that he's weird as opposed to dangerous. And he doesn't seem to know how to deal with that.
Yeah.
And is it not a bit of a surprise, I wonder, that they haven't got to grips with that new line of attack yet?
It's a good point, Caitlin, isn't there? I mean, there was Kamala Harris last night. As you say, she's been the vice president. And when she said, because she said at one point during the debate, it's time for a new generation of leadership, that's her way of making that transition. I'm the vice president. I'm part of the incumbent White House duo. But, come with me and we go somewhere completely new. And I could see a smile drift over, a sort of wry, rueful smile drift over Donald Trump's face when she said that. He saw what she was up to there, branding him as the old guard. So out with the old before the old had a chance to resurface. What do you make of what you heard from Matthew Canning?
Oh, absolutely. I think, age has been a really, really hot topic the last few months. Obviously, the disastrous debate between Trump and Biden, we saw age kind of at the forefront there and serve as the catalyst for Biden to suspend his reelection campaign. And I do think, Kamala Harris, again, that debate prep showing last night when she had that, very resounding statement, a new generation. And I also think it's appealing to the Gen Z voters and those first-time voters who are so involved on social media and longing to get into politics to see change. So I think it was a very strategic appeal to a very specific audience. And again, kind of flipping, what we've seen so far, this rhetoric on age. But, also to that point, Donald Trump was very quick at the end in his closing remarks to kind of flip that on Kamala and say, well, you've been in office 3 years. Why haven't you done any of these things? And I think that's a really important point, too, because, that's kind of the lasting impression from, that was the last thing we heard of Donald Trump during the debate. And so for him to end with that, I think is very strong. And I think people are kind of running with that today and wondering, well, why hasn't she done those things? And obviously that is because she is not the president. She is the vice president. She doesn't have the same powers and such. So again, I do think it's important to make that distinction and to know that, Donald Trump is clapping back at those things.
Yeah, that was a line that Donald Trump managed to land right there at the end. What are you thinking, Isabel?
I'm really interested in this idea that people are getting bored at Trump rallies. I'm fascinated by that because I assume that people were still really excited if they bothered to go to them. So is that a thing?
It's really interesting. I mean, what we've seen stateside is people lining up hours in advance to get into these rallies. And obviously, we've seen a massive shift since July 13th, since that assassination attempt. But again, there is still this excitement around the Trump-Vance campaign. And I think every time there is one of these big rallies, we also see, in addition to people lining up hours and hours in advance, we see people withstanding heat exhaustion and being treated at the scene. They are so excited for the chance to listen to Donald Trump speak, to see J.D. Vance. So there's definitely a palpable excitement. And I think you can say the same thing about the Harris Walls campaign and ticket. I don't know that that's been as widely publicized, those rallies. But again, we know that Donald Trump loves and has so much pride in his campaign rallies. It's such a big
Yes.
point of his campaign. He's like, I'm rallying here, I'm
Yes.
rallying there, and people line up and they love it.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting to hear Kamala Harris say people leave, and it makes me wonder, was she at a rally? Were her people at a rally? What did they see that's different from, what the rest of us are seeing?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is worth noting, isn't it, that the grammar of broadcast news reporting, Caitlin, in that sense, it does Donald Trump a bit of a favour. He goes to his rallies, stands up, and he speaks for maybe 90 minutes or 2 hours. I think is not entirely uncommon, and those speeches, well, they ramble. Being to be polite about it. They ramble. They're frequently incoherent. They leap from thought to thought. If Kamala Harris in the past has been guilty of serving up word salad, I'm not sure how you describe what Donald Trump has been serving up, even though just the other day he gave an interview describing his rhetorical style as work of genius. I'm not sure. It's difficult to agree with that. It is a complete mess. But on broadcast coverage, it's cut into bite-sized chunks. It seems far more concise than it would if you were sitting there, which is what I suppose Harris meant when she said people get bored. It takes a lot of stamina to listen to that stuff, Caitlin.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, what's so different about the rallies hosted by Trump versus Harris is that, at this point, we've seen Kamala Harris kind of deliver the same speech in all of her rallies.
Yes.
It's the same. I know Donald Trump. I know his type. I've prosecuted. It's that kind of, same hammering home the same points. With Donald Trump, we don't know what we're going to get on a daily basis, which I think contributes to that excitement felt by his supporters and his fan base, really.
Yes.
So there is, and I think that contributes to why people line up so early and why there is this, kind of joy in wanting to see him and what is he going to say today and, what points and what's new. And so there is that excitement. And I think that's very clear. And that's a very clear distinction between the two camps.
There wasn't a lot of anything that was new in Kamala Harris's contributions last night. She'll be happy with the way that went, but there was very little new to talk about. She did get to advertise some of the key headline policies of $6,000 for this is a tax break for young people starting off in life. There was a $50,000 tax break for small businesses, I think, as part of the plan. But these things are established policies. When it comes to new stuff, we didn't really get that. There's still a hunger for that, Caitlin. What are you keen to hear when it comes to just learning more of what we want to learn about Kamala Harris's policy platform?
Absolutely. I think, we saw Kamala Harris dance around a lot of the questions last night. I think we did get more of a straight answer from her on fracking, which has become such a contentious talking point for her campaign, for Donald Trump's campaign. She did say that she does not have a plan to ban fracking. So, that was kind of a big takeaway. She did hammer home about abortion and challenged Donald Trump's views and claims. But again, I think we need to see more concrete plans from her. She has these points and she is great at interjecting when Donald Trump makes a claim or says something. But again, we need to see more facts and concrete proof of what she plans to do if and when she takes office.
And on the famous remark of Donald Trump about Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, kidnapping and eating people's pets, family pets. I mean, I've heard interpretations of that suggest, but he's putting up the issue of immigration in lights, and that's not altogether comfortable for Kamala Harris. I hear that. I struggle to see that contribution as anything other than clumsy and crude. Am I wrong in your view, Caitlin?
I think that was part of the Harris campaign's plan to bait Donald Trump, right? She deliberately, kind of led him on and gave him the bait during the immigration question, which really launched him into this tirade of, saying, to be very clear, these claims have been debunked. They are conspiracy theories. And, Donald Trump said, people are eating, or the immigrants are eating people's pets in Springfield, Ohio. And ABC was very quick to fact check. You know, kudos to the moderators. That was one of the times they jumped in and they said, you know, we spoke to officials in Springfield. There are no reports of that. That is false. And again, Donald Trump doubled down on these claims.
Yes.
So it's kind of a fascinating rhetoric, and it's really interesting that he would double down on something
It
that
was a
is
jaw-dropping moment. And after the debate, by the way, J.D. Vance, his running mate, was talking, I think, on CNN, and he tripled down on it, because what else could he do after the presidential candidate said what he said? He could hardly unsay it. And J.D. Vance was in this position of saying, well, we don't know, it's not true. Maybe it should be investigated. It all looked quite, to me, quite painful. Matthew, how did it look to you?
I thought it was extraordinary. It was actually the first thing I saw this morning when I woke up and looked at the
It's going to be
clips
played
on
a million times.
social media. It was extraordinary. I suppose both camps will be concerned about what topic are we talking about as a result of the debate. And I suppose the Donald Trump camp may feel that even if we're talking about this, even if it's completely outlandish and bizarre, at least we're talking about something that brings the debate onto immigration.
A bit like the side of the bus in the Brexit debate. That was the argument for it.
Exactly. Whereas I think the Kamala Harris campaign might think that in the same way, if we're talking about the size of the crowds at Donald Trump rallies, we're talking about, is this guy all he says he is, and do you really want to go back to this sort of person?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the time it's not necessarily about the content of the arguments, it's about, you know, what field are you playing the game on? And I think that's what they will care about. But it was utterly bizarre.